The World Endurance Championship's latest stop at COTA is in the books. What a race that turned out to be. From rain-soaked chaos and bold strategy calls to breakthrough victories for both manufacturers and teams, Austin, Texas delivered one of the most dramatic events of the season. And in this video, I'll be breaking down a complete race recap of the 2025 Lone Star Le Mans. The weekend began in familiar fashion, with the practice sessions running really smoothly, but qualifying quickly turned turbulent once the rain arrived. In Hypercar, it was clear that Ferrari showed signs of recovery after their struggles with the BOP in Sao Paulo, with Robert Kubica putting the number 83 AF Corse 499P on pole position with a 1 minute 57.655, backed up by the championship leading number 51 Ferrari alongside to lock out the front row for the Italian mark. LMGT3 meanwhile belonged to Ford. Gianmarco Lavorato stormed to pole in the number 88 Proton competition Mustang with a 2 minute 07.645 lap time, securing Ford's first WEC pole since 2019, and on home soil no less, with a front row sweep for Proton with the number 77 Ford right behind. Race day saw drama even before the cars made it to the grid yet, as the number 93 Peugeot, which had qualified in third on Saturday, was sent to the back for a technical infraction in Hypercar due to some rain lights, which promoted the entries behind, like the number 6 Porsche Penske 963, up a place for the race. But with that out of the way, the 36 car field was now set for an exciting showdown in Texas. Sunday's race began under safety car conditions due to heavy rainfall, and it stayed that way for the entire first hour, which unfortunately meant that not a single green flag racing lap was completed during that time. Later on, the WEC red flagged the race, marking the first time that Lone Star Le Mans had a red flag in over 10 years. The last time was in 2015 due to rain as well. Also, it is imperative for me to mention that two important things happened while the race was under yellow or under the red flag. First off, the number 87 Lexus had to take multiple trips to the garage as there were issues with the headlights on the RCF GT3. And unfortunately, this caused the Otis ASP car to go multiple laps down, meaning that it wouldn't repeat the success from last time out at Sao Paulo, which gave Lexus and Otis ASP their first WEC victory. Meanwhile, BMW's Hypercar hopes unraveled when Rene Rast number 20 BMW car had to retire before the racing even began, with the entry not being able to go back to the garage because of hybrid issues, forcing it out of this endurance race in Austin. After more than 2 hours of delayed green flag racing finally came. Ferrari initially controlled the race, holding first and second with the pole-sitting number 83 Ferrari ahead of the number 51 car, while Porsche's number 6 remained in close pursuit in the hands of Belgian racer Laurens Vanthoor, while Julian Andlauer made steady progress in the number 5 car as he climbed up to 6th behind the number 99 customer Porsche with Nico Varroni still behind the wheel. Spins and off-track excursions came thick and fast in Hypercar, with Toyota, Alpine, Aston Martin, and Cadillac all being caught out in these treacherous conditions in the early stages, with the incidents at the very beginning of the race for Tom Gamble in the 007 Valkyrie and the number 36 Alpine being the most impactful. Both cars were able to continue on, but the 36 Alpine lost a lot of the bodywork at the back of the car, which forced the A424 to limp back to the pits and lose major ground to its rivals, meaning that Alpine and the 36 were no longer really in contention for a solid result. Yet, amid the chaos, Aston Martin's Valkyrie program continued to impress. Despite the spin for the 007 car, on the other side of the garage for the heart of racing, the 009 Valkyrie was running a really good race, with Alex Riberas moving up into 6th overall. And remember, this is just the car's 6th event in the championship, which is quite remarkable. LMGT3 brought its own storylines, with Ford and McLaren setting the pace early, with Chevrolet's Corvette entries briefly leading, and other brands like Porsche, Ferrari, and BMW also showing unexpected pace to fight for the win. And overall, the battle for the class win shaped into one of the fiercest across the season so far. During the first hour, Tom van Rompuy led in the LMGT3 class in the 81 Corvette, and even though Lavarato's pole-sitting number 88 Ford Mustang had dropped back during pit sequences, the number 77 Mustang was still in the fight for the lead, as Portuguese racer Bernardo Sousa continued to close the gap from second, and eventually, with just around 3 hours and 20 minutes left, the Mustang and Corvette swapped positions, as Sousa moved forward back into the lead at Lone Star Le Mans. Elsewhere, Nico Varroni spun in the number 99 Proton Competition Porsche at the long right-hander, and coincidentally, the WEC caught this live on television. This was super unfortunate for the privateer Porsche, especially because it was right in the fight for a top 5 finish before this, which would have been the number 99's best result of the season. But the spin, as well as some other unlucky moments later on, prevented that result from happening, and the German team could only muster 13th place at the checkered flag. But hopefully, Proton Competition bounced back stronger in Hypercar at the 6 hours of Fuji. Meanwhile, at the front, James Calado took the lead in the number 51 Ferrari and moved ahead of Phil Hansen in the yellow AF Corsa car. But then, drama struck for the pole-sitting number 83 Ferrari when Phil Hansen mistakenly pitted in an incorrect position while handing the car over to Yeti-Blue, which dropped them down to 5th. With the 83 dropping behind, this opened the door for Porsche Penske's number 6 car to move up into 2nd and split the factory Ferraris, while the number 5 climbed into 4th, which would ultimately set up a thrilling fight to the finish between Ferrari and Porsche. With the battle at the front clearly being between Ferrari and Porsche, the rain continued to make things really difficult for the entries out on track. Ryu Hirakawa soon spun in the number 8 Toyota in a similar spot as Hartley earlier, and later on Nick De Vries and Jose Mario Lopez also spun in the sister number 7 Toyota on a couple of occasions. Now, as I've continued to break down this recap of Lone Star Le Mans, I'm sure that you can tell by now that Toyota Gazoo Racing was having a really difficult day. Once again, the balance of performance didn't help their chances at COTA, and they were extremely unlucky, making their time out on track extremely challenging and ultimately resulting in neither car claiming a top 8 result once the checkered flag fell. But hopefully the Japanese brand bounces back stronger in their home event next up at Fuji. The Toyotas weren't the only cars in the top class finding the conditions tricky though, as elsewhere Sebastian Bourdais had a massive spin on board the number 38 Cadillac, but thankfully the multi-IndyCar champion kept the car out of the wall and kept on going, but the spin set the entry back a bit. Over in LMGT3, Ben Tuck continued to place the number 77 Ford Mustang at the top, but the two McLaren 720S entries from United Autosports were close behind and battling for a double podium finish, and potentially a win. Unexpectedly, the Porsche 911s were also showing really good performance, with the number 92 Manthey First Form and the number 85 Iron Dames cars fighting with the McLarens for the podium. With just about 1 hour and 40 minutes to go, following the 6th safety car period of the day, on the restart, Kevin Estre got a really good run on the leading car out of the final turn, and eventually made a bold lunge up the inside of turn 1 on Alessandro Pierguidi in the number 51 Ferrari. However, contact between the two led to a puncture for the Ferrari, forcing an unscheduled pit stop for the Ferrari AF Corsa crew, which dropped the number 51 behind. Race Control evaluated the altercation between Porsche and Ferrari, and Estre eventually received a warning for the incident, but he did retain the lead, and ultimately that move proved decisive in Porsche's incredible results, as the 963 was soon released to push on ahead. As the race progressed, Alex Lynn eventually got Cadillac Hertz Team Jota into 3rd place, with the number 12 car overtaking Michael Christensen in the number 5 Porsche just before another safety car was brought out, this time because of the number 87 Lexus, which had spun in the final sector of the track. When green flags finally came out again, Kevin Estre in the number 6 Porsche Penske resumed where he had left off, and grew the gap once again to Miguel Molina in the number 50 car right behind, with Alex Lynn putting pressure on the 499P for second in the Sao Paulo winning Cadillac V Series R after moving ahead of the number 5 Porsche. Just behind the battle for the podium though, surprise surprise, Aston Martin were in the fight. Not only were both cars in the top 8, but they were fighting with the front runners on genuine pace, with Harry Tincknell in the 007 Valkyrie putting pressure on the pole-sitting Ferrari of Robert Kubica for 5th overall. While Aston's Valkyries were showing major improvements in hypercar over an LMGT3, there was an intense fight going on for the lead, as McLaren and Ford went side by side down the back straight, with Marino Sato and Ben Tuck making some contact in the pursuit to gain first wins for both manufacturers in the LMGT3 class. But while Ford and McLaren were fighting for the win, another driver was coming through the field fast, and that was Davide Rigon in the number 54 Vista AF Corsa Ferrari. And with under an hour to go, the Italian racer charged up to 3rd and then went side by side with Sato's McLaren and eventually got past. And now the only car in Rigon's way of getting Ferrari to victory lane was the race-leading number 77 Ford Mustang. Speaking of cars charging through the field, that's exactly what the 2 Peugeot 9X8s were doing. The rain started to go away as the sun began to set at COTA as the race neared its conclusion. And during this time, Peugeot was absolutely flying with both of their entries. In his penultimate race for the French team, amid rumors that he's going to Genesis, Stoffel van Dorn moved the number 94 Peugeot into 3rd place, and Mikkel Jensen followed him in the sister car to move into 4th. While the Peugeot 9X8s were absolutely loving these new conditions, unlike before, the Aston Martin Valkyries were starting to struggle at Lone Star Le Mans. This was partly because the Heart of Racing put Riberas in the 009 Aston on a new set of wet tires just before the conditions got to a point where water became less of a factor. However, there were bigger issues for the Valkyries, as Harry Tincknell had to stop the 007 car on the exit of the pit lane and retire with a mechanical issue, which was just absolutely heartbreaking. And then, to make matters worse, the second Aston Martin, Riberas in the 009, had to come into the garage and retire as well due to a similar issue for the 007. While seeing both cars out of the race was just devastating, the team found the positives in this dreadful situation, as they recalled the massive step forward for the Valkyrie LMH program, where both cars were fighting in the top 8 at Lone Star Le Mans, which was something that we hadn't seen from Aston Martin in the top class in the WEC at all this season. And I hope that the Valkyries will return to fight in these positions at Fuji and Bahrain for the remaining 2 rounds this year. Over in LMGT3, there was also a lot happening. Aside from the disappointment for Iron Dames fans, as the 85 Porsche had to retire due to debris in the radiator, making it unsafe to continue, the pit stop sequences where teams were changing from wet tires to dries was happening now. But during the crossover point where teams were unsure what tire would be best, Proton Competition pit their leading Ford Mustang and made the critical decision to keep on the wet tires. Davide Rigon in the 54 Ferrari was one of the drivers to pit onto slicks, and inevitably he caught up to the leading Ford with wet weather tires still on, and the number 92 Manthey First Form Porsche, which was in second at the time because it too was on wets. The Ferrari got past the Porsche at the final turn with ease, but on his way to first past the Mustang, Rigon made critical contact with Ben Barker, which would come back to haunt Vista AF Corsa later on. But at this point, what you need to know is that Ferrari got into the lead of this race, and soon that Mustang started to drop down the order within the final 7 minutes, which moved Marino Sato in the 95 McLaren into second, followed by the 46 BMW from Team WRT. But enough of LMGT3. Over in Hypercar, things were pretty much already decided. Ferrari unfortunately couldn't challenge Porsche for the win at this point, and eventually, as the sun began to set in Texas, Estra crossed the finishing line 8 seconds ahead of Molina, clinching Porsche Penske Motorsports' first win of the 2025 World Endurance Championship season. Kevin Estra would share the top step of the podium with teammates Lawrence Vantor and Matt Campbell, capping off a masterclass in strategy, composure, and adaptability in the tricky conditions at the Circuit of the Americas. Second place would go to the number 50 Ferrari after a well-fought result, and then came those two Peugeot 9X8s. What a performance from both of the French hypercars. The number 94 Peugeot would finish on the podium with drivers Stoffel Vandoorne, Malte Jakobsen, and 2013 winner here Loic Duval, with the number 93 right behind in fourth. This in fact would be the number 94 crew's first podium ever in the WEC, as the other podium finishes for the French manufacturer were courtesy of the number 93. So congratulations to Team Peugeot Total Energies on a well-deserved podium finish. Finally, the top 5 in hypercar was concluded by the number 51 Ferrari. I have to commend the 51 Ferrari crew, as following its puncture, the car moved outside the top 10 and then climbed through the field to make it up into a top 5 finish. Obviously, for Ferrari fans, it's disappointing to not see this car win, as it likely would have finished on the podium at least after a very strong performance across this event. But nevertheless, a top 5 is a great result considering what happened earlier. Now, if you thought the action was over, think again, because the drama was continuing here at Lone Star Le Mans post the race. In LMGT3, initially it was Vista AF Corsa that took the victory. However, in a dramatic turn of events, post-race, the Ferrari received a penalty for the contact between Davide Ragon and Ben Barker, which I mentioned earlier. And so, McLaren and United Autosports were awarded P1. This gave the victory to the number 95 McLaren, which crossed the line in second, after a really strong showing by drivers Darren Leon, Sean Galale, and Marino Sato, which gave McLaren their first ever victory in the World Endurance Championship, and I'm sure that it won't be their last. The second place trophy in LMGT3 went to the number 46 Team WRT BMW after an underrated performance, with the number 54 Ferrari being demoted to third following the penalty. The second United entry, the 59 McLaren, would finish in fourth, and it was followed by last year's winner, the Heart of Racing team, with their number 27 Aston Martin Vantage completing the top 5. Usually I just cover the top 5, but two more results I do want to point out is that the 77 Proton Ford and the number 92 Porsche would end up finishing right behind the Aston Martin in 6th and 7th in class. Let's now take a look at how the championship standings line up following Lone Star Le Mans. In the hypercar standings, the number 51 Ferrari continues to be at the top with 115 points. But just a further 15 points behind is the number 83 AF Corsa Ferrari in second. Following its win at Lone Star Le Mans, the number 6 Porsche now moves into third with 79 points, followed by the number 50 Ferrari, and the number 12 Cadillac Hertz Team Jota entry completes the top 5. And by the way, 3rd, 4th, and 5th in hypercar is just separated by 7 points. In the bottom 5 of the top 10, there are a few changes, as the number 38 Cadillac moves into 7th after finishing 6th at Lone Star Le Mans, but just 2 points behind is the number 7 Toyota. Another 5 points behind the number 7 is the sister number 8 Toyota Gazoo Racing entry, with the number 20 BMW following, with the number 36 Alpine completing the top 10 once again. In the hypercar manufacturer standings, Ferrari continues to lead the way with 203 points. But Porsche has now moved into second after winning at Lone Star Le Mans in Austin, Texas, with Cadillac now dropping to third. Sitting with 99 points is Toyota with fourth, followed by BMW, Alpine, Peugeot, and Aston Martin completes the top 8. When it comes to the LMGT3 standings, there aren't many changes in the top 5, with the number 92 Manthey First Form Porsche continuing to lead, followed by the number 21 Vista AF Corsa Ferrari, with the number 33 TF Sport Corvette completing the top 3. The Sao Paulo winning number 87 Lexus is in 4th, followed by the number 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin, which is moved into 5th after securing a few points in the USA. The number 81 TF Sport Corvette has dropped to 6th, followed by the number 78 Akotis ASP Lexus. Then comes the number 54 Vista AF Corsa Ferrari, followed by the 59 United Autosports McLaren, with the number 46 Team WRT BMW jumping back into the top 10. So that concludes yet another FIA World Endurance Championship race in 2025, as Lone Star Le Mans is now complete. Thankfully, we don't have to wait long for another race in the WEC, as the series is back in just 2 weeks from posting this video for the epic 6 Hours of Fuji in Japan. But now I want to know, what did you think about this rain-impacted event in Austin, Texas at the Circuit of the Americas? Well, I'm fascinated to read your thoughts in the section displayed below.